Okay, I think I can start. So let us see here. So hello everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar that will give you an overview of Clause 4 of ISO 9001-2015, specifically about the context of an organization, interested parties, and scope. My name is Carlos Pereira da Cruz, and I'm an author at 𝗧𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗲. I do quite a lot of ISO 9001 consulting and training, but also auditing as lead auditor. So today I'm going to share with you my thoughts about the value behind dealing with context of the organization, interested parties, and their relevant requirements, and the QMS scope, okay, as described in Clause 4. My presentation will last approximately 40 minutes, after which we'll do the 20-minute Q&A session. If you'd like to ask a question, you don't have to wait for the Q&A session. You can ask it during my presentation by clicking the Q&A icon and writing your question. Of course, in the Q&A session, I'll also answer all of your remaining questions. If you click on the, no, it's that. Okay, so let's see here. So why this webinar? Well, it's important because it's about Clause 4 is like the foundations. It's about the fundamental decisions in the QMS. Okay, so these choices define the boundaries and shape the content of the QMS, and very important for fundamental decisions. So if you get this wrong, the whole system may end up weak or misaligned. And today, we'll explore how to handle three key elements of the context of the organization, the interested parties, and defining the scope. And because they provide the framework for everything that comes with ISO 9001. We also mentioned the draft international standard changes, okay? This webinar is aimed at quality managers, internal auditors, consultants, and anyone responsible for implementing or maintaining a QMS. So these professionals need to master Clause 4 to ensure the system is built on solid ground. So let's see our agenda for today. So we'll start with the scope and applicability of clauses. Then we'll discuss relevant interested parties and their needs and expectations. Then we'll discuss context, internal and external issues, and show how context and interested parties may be related to organizational risks and opportunities and to climate change. And at the end, we'll present the main challenges based on the questions received before this webinar, okay? I will provide you an update on the changes on the ISO Draft International Standard 9001-2025. But attention, okay, attention, there may be changes until the final draft international standard is approved, okay? So it's expected to be approved in June 2026, and publication of ISO is expected in September 2026. So I leave here a link for the article, ISO 9001-2015 versus ISO this 9001-2026, main differences, okay? Again, attention, there may be changes, okay, until the final draft is approved. Now, okay, so why Clause 4? Let's see the big picture. Why Clause 4 is important. So one of your company's first decisions during QMS implementation should be determining the system scope, okay? So different scopes may determine very different quality management systems, okay? Defining the system's scope is much more important than it seems at first glance. So when the scope is unclear, the project becomes vulnerable. You know what people call scope creep, that is the uncontrolled or unplanned expansion of what the QMS is supposed to cover, okay? And this can happen when people interpret the purpose, the boundaries, or responsibilities differently throughout the project, okay? Because different scopes lead to very different QMSs. Not defining the scope clearly from the start can result in misaligned expectations, inclusion of activities, sites, or products that were never meant to be part of the system, can generate delays and budget overruns, okay, because new requirements emerge mid-project. Yeah. So our QMS exists for what? To serve others, okay? To serve the clients. And we want to achieve objectives, okay? While working for clients, our organization wants to achieve desired results, okay? We want, at the same time, we want to avoid undesirable results, and we must comply with compliance obligations, okay? Now, some interested parties like suppliers will help us, okay? And some like regulators will set constraints, okay? Now, achieving expected results and avoiding undesirable results, for example, is not straightforward. You know why? Because context brings uncertainty, okay? Uncertainty may result in organizational risks and opportunities, okay? So this is what happens. So let's see. This one here is about clause 4.1, so about the context. Clause 4.2, it's about here, so the interested parties that are relevant for our QMS. And clause 4.3 is right here about the scope. Okay. Now let me leave here another article. So a link for the article: how to use the inputs from the context of the organization. Clauses 4.1 and 4.2 to build your management system. Okay. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, you see there also, then this relates to the risks of the organization. Yeah. So here we have also the risks of the organization that makes the connection. Now, an organization must determine the scope of the QMS. So let's start with clause 4.3 about the scope. Okay. So there are no differences between clause 4.3 in ISO 9001:2015 and this version. Okay. Okay. If we consider already the amendment, okay, of February 2024 about climate change. So there are no changes, only editorial changes. Okay. So that is set just right now. Now, the organization shall define, document, and make available the scope of the QMS, referring to products and services that are provided and determining the limits of the management system. Okay, so the scope defines and communicates the borders of the QMS. So the scope should clearly describe the type of products and services covered by the system and provide sufficient information. Okay, this is important to prevent the transmission of erroneous or misleading information about what the organization covers in the QMS and what it can provide to its customers. Okay, it must be available because the organization communicates to the relevant interested parties, namely customers and potential customers, the products and services it makes available under the QMS through the scope. So let's see an example. Okay, hotel. Okay, I like to use the hotel because I think it's something that everyone understands easily. So the hotel may provide services like hospitality, conference rooms, events, spa, pool, restaurant, a lot of things. Yeah. Now the hotel, these are the services. The hotel may sell services through travel agencies, websites, phone, and over the counter. So these are like the channels. And the hotel may serve groups or individuals. Okay. Now, top management may decide, and this is a management decision, not a technical decision. Okay. It's not for a consultant to decide what is the scope. No, it's okay. It's more an answer to the question, why do we need this QMS? And why do we need to certify our QMS? Okay, so top management may decide that only hospitality, okay, will be included in the scope, okay, kind of products or services. Now, the exercise can go even deeper, okay, sometimes not very useful, but okay, so the exercise can go even deeper, and top management may decide hospitality, yes, through travel agencies for groups, okay. So top management may decide that certification will be useful for increasing work or business with travel agencies. So they decide that the scope will be hospitality for groups through travel agencies as the channel. Okay. Now, ISO 9001 is also applicable, okay, to a multi-site organization. So if that's the case, the scope must be clear. What sites are included? Okay. Now, I leave here links for 2 articles. One is how to define the scope of the QMS according to ISO 9001, and the other is certifying different legal entities under one certification scope in ISO 9001. Now, we have here 3 questions. Let's see. First question, Bob. Bob asked, is listing products and markets on the company scope a best practice? Now, listing products or product families is generally good practice, okay, because ISO 9001 requires the scope to describe the products and services covered by the QMS, okay? Like, for example, design and manufacture of industrial valves and pressure control equipment, okay? So this helps auditors and interested parties understand what activities and outputs the system covers, okay? Now, listing markets or countries is usually unnecessary and sometimes not very wise, okay? Because markets may change frequently, so the scope should describe what the organization does, not necessarily where the products are sold, okay? So including markets can force unnecessary scope updates, okay? Now, another question is from Dana. Dana asked, Clause 4.3 says the scope should be available. Who is being referred to that the scope is available for? Well, the standard does not specify a particular audience, okay? But in practice, the scope should be available to relevant interested parties, okay? Yeah. And another question is from Justice. Justice asked, what is the best way to delimit the boundaries of the management system without leaving out crucial aspects of the business? Again, so the boundaries of the management system are defined through a management decision, not a technical exercise, okay? So the key is to ensure the scope does not omit activities that are necessary to ensure the conformity of products or services, okay? So if an activity affects quality, it should normally be included in the management system. So at the same time, certification scope and management system scope do not have to be identical, okay? Certification scope and management system scope do not have to be identical, okay? So an organization may apply the management system to a wider part of the business while choosing to certify only a specific site, activity, or product line. So the important point is that the boundaries are logical, transparent, and do not compromise the organization's ability to meet requirements, okay? So now about applicability, it's another thing. So included in clause 0.3, what is applicable? So no exclusions are allowed, okay? You cannot say, I don't want to apply this clause. No. If a clause is applicable, it must be considered in the QMS, okay? But whether or not a clause applies may depend on the scope of the QMS, okay? So let's see the following example. The question is clause 8.3 applicable? Okay, and you have 3 companies here. So the green company manufactures products for clients' brands, okay? The red company manufactures products for its own brand. And the blue company manufactures products for client brands and for its own brand. So is clause 8.3 design and development of products and services applicable to these companies' QMS? Well, let me answer in a simplified way for the green company, no. No, in the first case, the company doesn't design the product, okay? Yes, in the second case, the company designs the product. And in the third case, it depends, okay? So what is the scope of the QMS? So if it states own design or own brand, clause 8.3 is applicable. Okay, if it only states manufacturing for others, clause 8.3 is not applicable, even if the company designs some products outside of the QMS scope. Okay, now I leave before mentioning the links for the article, just to say that green company there, I once worked with a green company like that one. So they manufacture products for clients' brands, but clause 8.3 was applicable. Why? Because they were developing very specific processes to, you know, like when you use the trousers with rock smashing aspect that may make them old. So they developed processes like that. So we started with no, but then we had to change to yes, because okay, you design the processes. Your customers come here to buy what you know about processes. Now, I'll leave here the links for two articles. One is what clauses can be excluded in ISO 9001, and the other one is specific use of ISO 9001 design and development in the machining process. Okay. Now, let's go to interested parties. Okay, clause 4.2. Okay, who are the interested parties? So, an organization, okay, the company exists to serve others, okay, the clients. Now, increasingly, markets are becoming too complex to be viewed as a simple dyadic relation, supplier-client. So, for a particular organization, it can be important to consider as interested parties the client's clients, not always, but for a particular organization maybe. If that market is highly regulated, well, regulators can be considered or must be considered an interested party. So does the business depend on critical know-how from workers? Is there a hard competition for workers? Okay, perhaps they too can be considered relevant interested party. So an organization can consider interested parties as relevant. For example, other like critical suppliers or prescribers, you know, those without power over customers. Those with power over customers, like a physician prescribing medicine to a patient, or influencers, those without a formal power over customers, but with a big influence, like fashion bloggers or athletes using a product. Or perhaps a non-governmental organization can be of help or hindrance to the activity of the organization. Okay, perhaps they can be also considered a relevant interested party. Now, what about banks? Okay, they may also be a relevant interested party for some organizations. And of course, top management or owners or shareholders. Okay, so after determining the relevant interested parties, an organization must determine their requirements. So, for example, for banks, top management, and workers, they may be concerned with business results, okay, reputation, and financial stability. And for example, we are increasingly seeing banks linking financing and decisions with sustainability and business continuity requirements, for example. Now, let me issue a warning. So, have you ever read Annex A3 from ISO 9001, 2015? People normally don't care about the annexes, but you know, when I had a very important training about ISO standards in my professional life, the trainer said something that I never forget. Said, the good stuff is always in the annexes. Okay, so Annex A3. Okay, in the Annex A3, last paragraph states there is no requirement in these international standards for the organization to consider interested parties where it has decided that those parties are not relevant to its quality management system. So remember, you are not in a competition to have the longest list of interested parties. And I must confess, personally, I'm tired of certification auditors writing in their audit report things like, you should include or should consider to include the certification body, you should include the calibration service providers as interested parties. Come on, no. Too much information clutters the essential. What is really relevant for your organization in terms of business, okay? And remember, all models are wrong. Some are useful. The value of a map, okay, lies in its simplification. It cannot and should not be the same size as the territory. No, it loses the interest, loses the importance, okay? So I leave here 2 links for 2 articles: Understanding Needs and Expectations of Interested Parties in ISO 9001, and How to Determine Interested Parties and Their Requirements According to ISO 9001. And by the way, Annex A3 also includes this interesting point. So it is for the organization to decide if a particular requirement of a relevant interested party is relevant to its quality management system. And we'll come back later to this, okay? Now, okay, let's consider an example. An IT service company, okay, must look, okay, beyond just direct client relationship. So our client might be a company that uses our cloud services, cybersecurity, or technical support. But who else matters, okay, besides the clients? So we may need to consider the following as relevant interested parties. So our clients, especially if our services impact their experience. Regulatory bodies, so particularly if you operate in highly regulated sectors like finance or healthcare. Highly skilled employees, okay, so whose retention is crucial. Technology partners, such as cloud providers or software vendors. And of course, owners or shareholders who expect sustainable performance. So each organization needs to make a reasoned decisions about who its relevant interested parties are and why, okay? So if you look into the text of ISO 9001, it doesn't say identify interested parties, it says determine interested parties. So determine means that you are an active agent, you decide, okay? If you were a passive agent, you will collect the information, you wouldn't decide, okay? You identify, okay? So, but here's the key point, okay? This is not about making a long list just to show you thought about everything. No, no. ISO 9001 makes it clear. Only those interested parties that are relevant to your quality management system should be considered. And relevance is not a matter of guesswork. It should be based on your business model and your strategy. So, for example, if your company is positioning itself as a premium managed service provider, okay, then customer experience, compliance, and talent retention are likely to be crucial. So you'll prioritize clients, regulations, and employees as key interested parties, okay? But if you are a startup offering low-cost IT support, maybe speed and price matter more than certification or regulatory compliance. So relevance means business logic. Think like a strategist, not just like a compliance officer, okay? So who can influence your ability, the ability of your organization to deliver value and succeed in your market? That's who matters, okay? Now, you determine, okay, now who are the relevant interested parties. Now what we do is the next step is to understand what they need and expect from us. So let's look at some examples, okay, in this IT service company. So clients, okay, expect reliability, responsiveness, security and trust, value for money, adaptability. Okay, regulators expect compliance with standards like payment card, industry data security standard, or GDPR, for example. Employees, okay, expect continual training, a positive work environment, and job security. Technology partners expect technical alignment, clear collaboration, and contractual commitment. And, okay, shareholder or owners. So they expect profitability, growth, and reputation management, okay? Remember, Not every expectation needs to be addressed, okay, in the QMS. The key is determining those that influence our ability to consistently deliver quality services aligned with our strategic options, okay? Now, interesting that 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 asked the difference between needs and expectations in reference to interested parties, okay? So needs are requirements that must be fulfilled. So they are usually mandatory because they come from laws or regulations or contracts or essential operational conditions. So for example, customers need products that meet specifications. Or regulators need compliance with legal requirements. Employees need safe working conditions, okay? So if these needs are not met, non-conformities, legal issues, or business loss may occur, okay? Now, expectations are what interested parties would like to receive, but they are not always mandatory, okay? So for example, if delivery date or the time to deliver, okay, if time to deliver is part of a service level agreement, okay, it's a need because it's something that is, okay, you must deliver in 24 hours. But if it's not in a service level agreement, okay, customer may expect to receive in 24 hours, but it's not mandatory. So that will be an expectation, okay? So needs must be met. Expectations are desirable to meet, okay? So it could be customer expect quick delivery, employees expect career development, suppliers expect long-term relationships, okay? So if expectations are not met, the result is usually dissatisfaction rather than non-conformity, okay? Now, question here from Julia. Julia asked, is it mandatory to define the communication with interested parties or enough to demonstrate that risk and opportunities are controlled by the management system? So is it mandatory to define the communications with interested parties? No. ISO 9001 does not require organizations to formally define communication with interested parties. Okay, so clause 4.2 requires determining relevant interested parties and their relevant needs and expectations, but it does not require a communication plan with them. Okay, so what auditors expect to see, okay, normally, is that the organization understands relevant needs and expectations and addresses the associated risks and opportunities through its management system. Communication may be one way to manage those risks, okay? But it's not mandatory unless required by another clause, regulation, or contract, okay? Now, differences between 9001 and ISO DIS regarding clause 4.2. So the item C was added to clause 4.2, requiring an analysis of the interested party requirements, okay? That need to be addressed by with the QMS, okay? So this was in the Annex A3, and now it's in the body of the clause, okay? You see here, we have these needs and expectations for clients, but like they are here, they are very generic, okay? Now, let's think about different kinds of customers, okay? So we can think of a segment 1, okay? Reliability focus, so customers that expect high uptime, rapid response, strong data protection, SLA compliance. Perhaps they are, not perhaps, but I think they will pay more, okay, for the service. Another possibility is segment 2, okay, cost-sensitive small businesses that expect or want something affordable, straightforward, and predictable services. Okay, so they will pay less and receive less. And another possibility is segment 3, so more customization. So customization-driven enterprises, they look for flexibility, integration, co-creation. So expect tailored solutions, integration, legacy systems, dedicated support. So each type of customer determines different quality objectives. So for example, this one here a quality objective could be maintain system uptime above 99.9% of time. The second one would be deliver standard service packages with setup completed in less than 48 hours, or deliver at least 95% customization projects on time and within scope. So, okay, so this is interesting because this is related with strategy, okay? Now, the amendment about climate change was included in a note, okay? By the way, regarding interested parties, clause 9.3(2)(c) about the management review inputs, now management reviews must explicitly consider changes in the needs and expectations of interested parties as an input. Okay, this is a new requirement included in this version. Okay. Yeah, it's here. Okay. Now, let's see the relationship between, okay, because of this, okay, between different kinds of customers, relationship between interested parties. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. How this all connects to business and quality objectives. Okay, so imagine the company aims to reduce the average resolution time for critical incidents, okay, from 4 hours to 2 hours over the next quarter. Why this objective? Okay, because clients and regulators, especially in sectors like healthcare and finance, have a low tolerance for downtime or delays, and owners want to avoid SLA penalties, so service level agreement penalties, and protect the company reputation. Now, this shows how a clear quality objective can emerge from the combined needs of multiple interested parties, okay? Now, today's organization, this is a way of thinking that I find important. So today's organization generates today's results. So when we set an objective, we are thinking about future desired results. Now, we consider our internal context, what are our strengths and weaknesses, to calibrate the target and the actions, okay, that we need to develop to expect a better performance. So those actions will change the current organization into the future organization, okay? So, because only the future organization can deliver the future desired results, okay? So it's the only way to do that. So, for example, employees need efficient tools and streamlined processes to achieve it, for example. Okay, we need to do that. So, for example, you want to go from 4 hours to 2 hours over the next quarter. Okay, how can you expect that change in performance? So we need to take advantage, so act upon we need to use our strengths, act upon weaknesses, okay? And this means we'll need to change some existing things and start new things. So that's those new things and that we start and the things that we change is what is going to transform our today's organization into future organization. Okay. Now, next we'll explore how internal and external issues can influence whether or not we reach these objectives. Okay. Remember, I mentioned in one of the first slides, context and uncertainty. Okay, so now let's focus on internal issues first. Things inside the company that may help or hinder us in achieving those objectives. Okay, so let's go back to our objective: reduce the average resolution time for critical incidents from 4 hours to 2 hours, and we would like to think why is it currently 4 hours. Now, we need to think about this. Internal issues might explain that there may be inefficient coordination between support tiers. Perhaps the incident management tool isn't user-friendly or fast enough. Maybe we lack enough trained staff during night shifts or weekends. Or maybe we rely too much on manual processes when automation could help. Okay, so these are weaknesses. Okay, internal issues in your organization. On the other hand, some internal strengths might help us achieve the goal, like high-skilled second-line support teams, strong process documentation, existing relationships with key technology partners who could offer faster diagnostics. Okay, these are strengths. So, understanding our current internal reality, both weaknesses and strengths, help us build a realistic action plan to reach the objective. Okay, now, so we set objectives and we intend to achieve them. However, okay, so we live in a world full of uncertainty. Some say we live in more and more in what they call the VUCA world, where VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, because of uncertainty, there may be positive or negative deviations regarding expected results. Okay, so remember, uncertainty is not a universal quality of a fact. It is an experience that depends on who is observing and in what context. So that's why when managing risk or communicating uncertainty, it is crucial to consider who is experiencing that uncertainty and under what conditions. So we need to ask, okay, where is the uncertainty? And okay, there's much more uncertainty in the outside world than in inside world. So let's go to the external issues. Okay, so we've looked inside. Now let's look outside. External issues are factors we don't control, but which can affect our ability to meet our objectives. So continuing with our objective to reduce resolution time, let's use a pestle lens, okay, to think through the external context. pestle helps us determine external issues. So pestle stands for political, like changes in data residency laws may affect how fast we can act in certain regions. Economic stands for budget constraints. As an example, from clients may reduce service contracts, limiting response options. Social expectations for 24/7 availability are rising. Technological, so new threats like zero-day attacks can increase the complexity of incidents. Legal regulations may slow down how we escalate incidents across jurisdictions. And environmental, for example, extreme weather events can disrupt our infrastructure or that of our clients. Okay. Now, some of these external issues might present risks, others may offer opportunities. So, for example, if clients demand faster services, that could be a risk if we are not ready, or an opportunity if we are. Okay. So, understanding these issues helps us anticipate uncertainty and build resilience into our plans. Okay, and think about this. Look at the title of this slide. What external issues could affect our ability to meet objectives? Okay. If you follow this approach, you will not run in a competition to list the longest list of external issues. Okay. But you will get a useful and relevant list. Okay. So what issues in the external context can have an influence in our objectives? So desired results, results to avoid, and legal compliance. So again, another topic is that external issues are not intrinsically negative or positive, okay? That depends on your strategy, that depends on your own organization. So remember, in times of crisis, some cry and some sell handkerchiefs. Okay, so positive or negative connotations is a subjective classification based on strategic orientation, skills, worldview, mindset. Okay, now how internal and external issues interact. Okay, so internal issues are resources or capabilities that help an organization achieve its expected results, or deficiencies in resources or capabilities that hinder an organization's ability to achieve its objectives. So internal issues act together with the external issues to raise risks or opportunities regarding the QMS objectives. So many companies organize and present internal and external issues with the help of a SWOT matrix. Okay, what I like to do, so the SWOT is the strengths, is positive internal issues are strengths, negative internal issues are weaknesses, positive external issues are opportunities, and negative external issues are threats. Okay. Now, we can determine if there are relevant combinations of strengths with opportunities and threats, and between weaknesses and opportunities and threats. Now, when we combine internal and external issues, we start to uncover many more useful insights. So, for example, and I think this is where really the SWOT logic helps, okay? Because I see too many organizations just preparing the SWOT matrix and then nothing more, an annex to be buried, okay, in the management review report. Now, let's revisit the objective, reducing resolution time from 4 to 2 hours. So now, when we analyze internal and external issues, the important point is not just listing them. The real value comes from seeing how they interact. So, for example, okay, when a weakness interacts with a threat, we create a risk that must be mitigated. So a typical case could be limited system visibility, okay, a weakness, combined with increasing cloud complexity, a threat, which may lead to longer outages and SLA violations, a risk, okay? Sometimes a strength, okay, meets a threat, which creates resilience to reinforce. So strong escalation procedures, strengths, for example, help contain cyber incidents and protect the 99.9 uptime objective. And when a weakness meets an opportunity, there is a risk of missing out. So, for example, slow change approvals may prevent us from deploying predictive maintenance tools that could reduce downtime. So the purpose of analyzing context is not just theory, is to connect issues with risks and opportunities, and ultimately with our quality management system objectives. Okay. Now, you'll find all of the documents that can help you with tracking all of those in context, risks, interested parties in your in our ISO 9001 Premium Toolkit. Okay. Now, let me show you how it looks like. So this is, let me see here. Okay. This is the list of all the documents that are part of the documentation toolkit. So you have here procedures, appendixes, so like forms, like tables, guidelines. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. I will show this one, procedure for determining context of the organization and interested parties, and then this one here. So these procedures are Word documents, so they are completely customized. It can be customized for your organization. So yeah, it's here. You already have this basis of work. Everything is here. Of course, when the new version comes, we'll update this to the according to ISO 9001:2026 version. So, okay, we have your context of the organization, the external context. Now you see here, you can adapt to your organization needs. Yeah, consideration of context, how to control the records in the organization. And you have here these appendixes. Let's see this one, list of interested parties. So this is a way for you to prepare this information in a systematic way. So interested parties, what are their needs, expectations, if where is written the needs, where they are written, related products and services, responsible person, deadline for complying with the requirement. So what I will do is I will leave here the link for with the detail where you can check the details of the toolkit. Okay. So April is asking, what will the documentation of all of these issues look like, and where will that be maintained? Is it appropriate to maintain all of these in the quality manual? No, I wouldn't include that in the quality manual, because then we need to update the quality manual very often. Okay. So what I would do, I would include these. So for example, I showed that table in the oh, sorry, but you are asking about the issues. No, about the issues. What I like to do, I like to record this in a SWOT matrix. Okay, it's where I like to do it. Okay, because really I use this what they call dynamic SWOT matrix. Okay, with these combinations of weaknesses and threats. I didn't show here combination of strengths and opportunities, the best one. But it's where I like to do it. Okay. Now let's continue. So clause 4.1 differences. Okay, no changes in requirements, only editorial changes. Climate change was incorporated, but it was already incorporated. Now, some of you asked about the climate change, and that's why it's already part of clause 4.1 and 4.2, but now about 4.1. So how to integrate climate change into clause 4? So the new amendment requires all organizations to consider climate change. So what I like to do is like this. Okay, first, determine interested parties for whom climate change is relevant. Customers, regulators, local communities, insurance companies, employees. So do any of them expect us to manage climate-related impacts? If yes, yes. If no, no. Okay, and no problem. Okay, you don't need to invent. Okay. Now, number two, review context. Consider climate change as an external issue that can affect your ability to achieve intended outcomes. So, examples: extreme weather affecting service delivery, new regulations on carbon emissions, market pressure to demonstrate sustainability. So, for example, this morning I was checking the Wall Street Journal, and some picture there about companies that were in a bad shape because of some tornadoes. Okay, so yeah, that's extreme weather affecting service delivery. So review your context. Are you in an area that this can happen? Okay. Now, determine relevance. So it's not acceptable to say climate change is irrelevant without justification. So even small businesses, so building maintenance companies, for example, can be affected by temperature changes affecting materials or working conditions, fuel use and emissions, customer requirements or tenders with environmental clauses. Okay, now determine risks and opportunities. So what could go wrong, risks, or be improved, opportunities, due to climate change? So for example, for building maintenance, or risk, for example, flooding delays, flooding delays access to sites, or opportunity. So use of eco-friendly materials may open new markets. Okay, and then now work on the controls with those relevant risks and opportunities. So integrate in the QMS. So include climate-related aspects where relevant. Okay, include can be objectives like reduce carbon footprint, or operational planning, sourcing sustainable materials, or training, awareness of climate-related risks, or communication, reporting progress to interested parties that may be keen on knowing about that. Okay, so other questions about these are what auditors may expect to see. So evidence that climate change was considered when analyzing context and interested parties. A documented or demonstrable process to evaluate whether climate change is relevant. So it's not mandatory, but it could be relevant. And if relevant, evidence of action, such as risk assessments, objectives, or resource planning. If considered not relevant, a justification and the rationale for that. Now, I leave you the link for an article called Climate Action Changes Amendment in the ISO Standards. Okay. And now, main challenges with Clause 4 of ISO 9001. So based on the frequency of questions in your emails prior to this webinar, these are the main challenges with clause 4 of ISO 9001. So I created 2 slides that I will present during the Q&A to answer to some of your questions, very specific questions. So understanding interested parties without over-formalizing the process. So many organizations believe they must obtain direct responses or formal statements from stakeholders. No, the real challenge is to establish a method to understand needs and expectations, not necessarily interact, okay? Because some interested parties don't want to interact with us, okay? Avoid unnecessary documentation while still showing control. So clauses 4.1 and 4.2 do not require specific documents, which creates uncertainty. So people are used to that. So the challenge is to demonstrate structured thinking and periodic reviews without creating excessive paperwork, and defining a logical and credible QMS scope. So organizations often struggle to set boundaries that reflect how the business actually operates. So the challenge is to define a scope that does not omit activities affecting product or service conformity while recognizing that management system scope and certification scope may differ. Okay. Now, conclusion. So to determine the scope, so to conclude, one can say that an organization determines the scope of the QMS that best suits the company, the context, the relevant interested parties, and the relevant requirements of each interested party. And to make that process easier, you can use Adviseira's ISO 9001 Premium Documentation Toolkit. So here's the link with more details. I'll also send you now the meeting link to schedule a call with our Toolkit expert. He'll explain you how Toolkit works and show you any document you would like to see. So here's the link, Toolkit expert meeting link. Okay, now let's start the Q&A. But before that, let's take a look at our courses. So you can enroll for free. You can watch the old videos for free. The Foundations course, 9001 Foundations course about the standard. The 9001 Lead Implementer course. Then the Internal Auditor course. The 9001 Lead Auditor course. So yeah. And also, I wrote a book about 9001. Perhaps it may be helpful for you in your journey. So to discover ISO 9001 through practical examples. Now, let's see. Hillary asked, what documents are required for compliance with clause 4 of the ISO 9001? So, and also Eduardo asked, how can I document this clause? So it's like this. There are no mandatory documents or records regarding clauses 4.1 and 4.2, okay? Now, regarding clause 4.3, the scope of the QMS must be documented. Normally, organizations do it in the quality manual or in a standalone QMS scope statement, okay? Now, I leave here a link for an article called ISO 9001 Documentation Requirements with a complete list, okay? You can check there. So they're not mandatory. You can use a table like that one. You can use the SWOT matrix. You saw that table where the interested parties and the needs and expectations. Okay, it's a way of doing it. Now, another question is from Beatrice. Beatrice asked, ISO 14001 mirrors ISO 9001 to some degree. Yes, yeah, it's the high-level structure. So yes, both have the name of the clauses is the same. Okay, so the focus is different, but yeah. Isabella asked, how do you know when you are ready to implement if you are in the process of setting up the, how do you know when you are ready to implement if you are in the process of setting up the quality management system? Okay, so a company is ready to start implementing the QMS when the basic design of the system is clear enough to be tested in practice, okay? So this in practical terms means if you have leadership commitment, okay, to support the effort, if the scope and objectives are clear, okay, if key processes are identified and key responsibilities are assigned, okay, implementation should begin. So if you wait until every document is perfect, nah, it's not good, okay? It's usually a mistake. A management system becomes real only when people start using it and learning from it, okay? Beatrice asked, is ISO 9001 due to be changed this year? Yes. Yes, ISO, as I said, so the final draft international standard will be approved in June 2026, and the new version, so ISO 9001 2026, will be published in September 2026. Okay, so of course all the documentation that we have will be updated to the new version of the standard, and we'll have webinars about that, very specific webinars about that, and articles. Okay, see here. Rita asked a very practical question. So Rita asked, what if interested parties don't reply or interact with us? How can we show auditors we are addressing clause 4.2? Okay, so it's like this. The key point is ISO 9001 expects a structured method for understanding interested parties, not their participation, okay? So interested parties are part of the context of the organization. We need to understand their relevant needs and expectations, but the standard does not require them to respond to us. As I said, so I'm thinking of a very worldwide known company, okay, that even to suppliers say, don't contact us, okay? We issue our orders in our site, in our portal. You don't need to contact us. When we need, we contact you, okay? So it's a very lean organization. Now, but let's see. Still thinking about this Rita question. Now, let's see this slide. Okay, one practical way to approach this is to think about the mutual importance of the relationship as shown in this matrix, okay? Some interested parties are strategic partners, okay, where the relationship is strong and must be actively managed, okay? But others we simply monitor because they matter to us, even if we are not critical to them. So see here, we have here in the base how important we are for them, and here we have how important they are for us. So they may be very important for us, but we may be not very important for them. So, okay, what we need to do is monitor, okay? So, for example, if it is a regulator, it's here. They matter to us, but we are not critical for them. They don't care. They only care for raising fines, okay? And we have this one here, low priority, weak relationship, limited impact, okay? Or this one here. So, for example, could be, for example, your employees, your workers, okay? How important we are for them, high. If a company decides that they are low, because there are plenty of them, okay, but they need to be kept informed. So depend on us more than we depend on them, okay? Another question is from Richard. Richard asked, can you give us examples of interested party risk reduction? So we have here interested parties, potential risk, and ways, controls that we can establish to reduce the risk. So customers, potential risk, complaints, loss of business. What do we do to minimize this? Okay, clear contracts, product specifications clear, customer feedback systems, service level agreements, okay? So for suppliers, okay, we want to avoid supply disruptions or poor quality inputs. What do? Okay, we evaluate suppliers. We keep approved suppliers list. We do dual sourcing. So for employees, okay, want to avoid errors, accidents, low engagement. So, okay, what do? Training programs, competence management, clear work instructions. Shareholders, owners, The risk is financial loss or poor performance. Risk reduction, okay, performance monitoring. Strategic planning, risk management. So yeah, different ways, okay? So I think we don't have any more questions. Now let's wrap up the webinar, okay? So I think I've covered all of your questions. So let's wrap up the webinar. Just a few words before we finish. As I mentioned, this 1-hour webinar was intended to give you a general overview of Section 4, not to go into details. So you can ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly by email. You can also download this presentation deck from our website, okay? Or take a look at video tutorials and documentation templates. We'll send you the email with all the necessary links, okay? Finally, right after this webinar, you'll see a short survey. So I would kindly ask to you to spend a minute to fill it in, okay? Okay, so that will be all. Thank you for your participation, and I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Have a nice day, okay?